Celebrity impersonation is something that every drag performer should be able to do. Celebrity impersonation is a long-time component of the art of drag. And that's because impersonation gets butts in seats at a show. People will go to a drag show because someone is doing a Cher illusion or an Adele illusion. They want to see what that's gonna look like. Real life entertainers inspire drag artists, whether that be in the way that they paint their face, the way they style their wigs, the way they style their costumes. So on that end, I'm very appreciative that King of Drag found a way to explore what celebrity impersonation would look like in a drag competition that's outside of what the televised drag audience would be thinking about, which is Snatch Game. Because realistically, the Boulets don't really do celebrity impersonation challenges, and with Snatch Game being the primary reference for celebrity impersonation, I've got a couple things to say. Very Jasmine Masters tea. And this is for punctuation of what this video's thesis is. Drag Race did not invent drag. And it did not invent celebrity impersonation. And I can already see the comparisons to the Snatch Game. But celebrity impersonation has been around for many, many decades before Drag Race was even a thought experiment. So please don't go thinking that this is meant to be some knockoff version of Snatch Game. I appreciate that they hybridized this challenge to incorporate a talent aspect into the impersonation category. I think it broadened expectations for what this base level skill is and incorporated a secondary element that I think people would be able to appreciate by seeing something that these kings can offer outside of whatever we've seen so far. I like how this episode opened, allowing us to peel back some layers of personality of these kings, showing us a bit more of who they are and letting them just talk to us. I continue to enjoy King Molasses and Dick Van Dyke, and the two of them remain my top two right now, and I sense that they will be the continual driving force through the rest of the competition. Big D is really growing on me, and I appreciate the energy that Big D brings not only in drag, but also out of drag. The overall theme of this episode is improv, which is not something that a lot of people can do very well. Improv is a gift of being able to listen to what's happening around you, process quickly, spout out something interesting and witty, and then be able to keep that ball rolling in a way that doesn't get lost or start not making sense. It is a skill to have improvisational skills, and just because someone is a drag performer does not mean that they are good at improv. Yes, anding is really hard for people that have spicy brains, like myself, because we have to work 2 times harder at listening to what's happening in the room, ignore the voices in our head, and be able to translate whatever the joke was in a way that actually makes sense to neurotypical folks. Improv is hard for neurotypical people who just don't have one single comedic bone in their body. And so improv challenges always make my hold tighten just a little bit. Like, ooh, this could be a rough one. I love that each layer of this episode was frosted with improv, from the weenie challenge to the beefy challenge, even to the final thrust. However, there are some tweaks that I would have made. Okay. This was the criminal responsible. You did it. I saw you and I caught you. Look at them. You're the one who committed a crime. What was I saying? I was not a fan of this weenie challenge. Hot Potato Improv is very grade 10 improv class. It is very early improv lessons. On some level, I appreciate that it was a warm-up. Doing it one word at a time, I think, was a little clunky. And on top of improv being hard, working with groups is difficult too. And so combining those, I don't think was fierce. I do love the idea. Mansplain an impossible prompt. What I personally would have liked is either, if they were going to do groups, have them do sentences, or have each one of them cover the exact same prompt, give them like 45 seconds to improv their story, and then do a super cut of all of those takes so that we get the funniest bits for maybe like 2.5 minutes of TV time. I think that would have made the weenie challenge maybe a little more streamlined. The beefy challenge was then to jump into character impersonation and not only try and make the panel laugh, but also to incorporate a talent. That talent could be whatever they wanted it to be. To me, this was very bar drag, but I don't mind that at all. what I appreciate about the show is that it's making nightlife accessible to people who, one, may not have the resources or accessibility to go to a nightclub, or might not have the interest or the social battery to go out. Comparing this to Drag Race for only a moment, what Drag Race's problem is that it is elevated beyond what even a pageant would be. I feel like pageantry in drag culture is semi-accessible. Ball culture is semi-accessible if you know where to go. Those doors are always open, but what Drag Race does is take ball culture and pageant culture and TV, reality, and squishes all that together and creates a very unrealistic expectation of what drag looks like in the wild, what you are really truly going to see from any drag performer post-show, because that's an elevated version. That's a heightened reality, right? Where what I appreciate about King of Drag is that it is very grassroots. That's what I like about Dragula. It's very grassroots. They're not creating these unrealistic expectations for anything. They're saying, show us what you do in the context of this. It doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be you and good. And I think that is really fantastic. The goal of this entire challenge was to make the panel laugh, and I found that I dissented quite often. Things that they laughed at, I didn't always find funny, and things that I found funny, they didn't really seem to respond to. Which I suppose is the beauty of doing a review show like this, because I'm not going to have a copy-paste opinion as the judges do. And I think most of y'all come around here because I don't typically follow the flow of the river. So let's talk about each one of these performances lightly. Buck performed as the devil. And I don't know, man, I did not like this when I was regularly performing in the nightclub scene. I don't like it on Drag Race. I don't like it at all. If you were given an assignment to choose a celebrity, pick a real life person. There's so many dudes out there in the world to choose a fictional character. I think it's such a cop-out. Now, I appreciate making the devil a Latino and going for that side that maybe we haven't seen before, in the same way that I really appreciated that Wednesday took the Adams and made them Latino. It's great representation and a great way to interpret something that everyone knows as a specific archetype or a specific look, and then imposing a personality on them that maybe people aren't used to. I think that's great. But like, what makes the devil funny? He's got a hot bod, an ass that won't quit, and caused the fall of man by deceiving Adam's very boobalicious naked wife. There's no comedy in that. And then the talent he chose was to make salsa. But then it was so hot because of the devil juice poppers that it made the devil pass out. But if the devil lives in fire, wouldn't nothing be too spicy for the devil? I also did not understand the mess making. I am a huge advocate for don't make any mess on a stage that you're on, because someone has to come and clean that up. Somebody is gonna be the little cleanup bitch and has to take a mop and get all up in there and scrub the floor and make sure that it's not slippery for the next performer. And what a tremendous pause in TV production when you have to stop everything to clean up your garbage. And maybe he's doing it himself and that's not fierce. The judges are sitting there giggling and talking to themselves about whatever, or they're just on ice while somebody cleans up and then the next performer comes out. It's just kind of disrespectful to the production, in my opinion, and I've never responded well to that. And yeah, they probably got permission to do this beforehand. It's just a personal nitpick of mine. The improv and the talent were very mid to me, so I understand why he was in the bottom and why he ultimately did go home. Alexander chose to do teenage Justin Bieber, which I think was an odd choice in general. And I guess this could have been funny, but also what's funny about Justin Bieber? I think the tap dancing was super skillful, but I didn't know what it had to do with Justin. I think there are probably tap dancing legends that are out there that you could perform as, and there'd be a lot more material to reference. Also, Alexander didn't volley well in the intro or the Q&A portion with the panel, so it was a miss. Big D was Sylvester Stallone, and I have got to say, this is where the challenge skipped off the rails a bit, just like a lot bit. Big D revealed this week that they are a trained clown, and the goal of any clown is to always learn and always try and learn how to make audiences laugh and connect with your presentation. And I think that really showed. Big D made a lot of huge swings this week, from being post-verbal to trying to fold a fitted sheet while wearing the boxing gloves and then beating them up and yelling and shouting iconic Rocky phrases. And I think those big swings paid off. Even if it was manic as hell, it was pretty fun. Big D made me laugh in a way that was unexpected. Dick Van Dyke performed as Steve Irwin, played some instruments, and then tackled a blow-up crocodile. That was insane. It was very campy, but it was very fun, and I liked that. The giant bulge was just enough of a distraction, and I must echo my sentiments from last week that Dick Van Dyke in drag makes my brain feel funny things. Why is Dick Van Dyke so hot in drag? Henlo had a whole lot to make up for from last week being in the bottom 2 and almost going home, and I think they accomplished what needed to be done. Doing Jack Black by way of School of Rock was bananas. But I really liked it as a interpretation of this celebrity. The red contour was a little wild, but that's really my only nitpick about it. The mannerisms, the movements, the articulations were all really perfect. Even the way that Henlo kind of scooped their hair back in one moment, it was just so perfect of who Jack Black was in that movie. Like they had watched it 1,000 times to really get what Jack Black did. The overall performance was maybe a little more chaotic than it needed to be, but everyone in the room was baseline chaotic, so it fit in with the rest of the performances, I suppose. King Molasses played Ira Glass, who up until this moment I had never heard of before. What I enjoyed this week about Molasses is that unlike everyone else in the room who just went off the walls, Molasses was significantly more restrained and showed a quieter side of comedy. Comedy doesn't always need to be yelling at your face and getting all up in here. Comedy can just be telling a really good joke or doing a really good character study in an inside voice tone. Now, I didn't think this was necessarily the winning performance. I thought that could have been Big D, but I did appreciate that it was different from what everyone else in the room did that made it stand out. Charles played Nosferatu. This was my favorite character study, but I echo the same problem I had with the devil. Even if I liked it and it was good, there are so many dudes that I would have liked to have seen. I think the physical comedy was excellent. This would have a nightclub roaring. I do think that reciting "What Does the Fox Say" was grounds for immediate bottom 2. But that's not the point. Like, don't even do anybody else's performance. Just be like, "What does the fox say?" No, you're bottom 2 right now. Perka played Steve Urkel. Poor Perka. I think this was going really well from the jump. It was a great characterization. The commitment to the character was impressive, and I loved the mannerisms. I loved the voice. It was like Perka had been studying for a long time to do this. Clearly, they've played this character before. And I enjoyed that the talent performance was a legit dupe of episodes that happen on Family Matters, using that transformation machine. This was a brilliant character study, maybe not exactly what the challenge called for as far as talent is concerned, but I liked what it wanted to be. Where I think it all really went downhill was the choice to turn into Sonic, which I think was way too meta, and it just did not make sense. I think it would have been more impressive to see Perka take a sexy route to this. Go for more of that suave and smooth character from Family Matters that Urkel played, and lean in on this confidence that Perka has not really been displaying up until now. Everything in their run has been about how they don't feel like they belong here, that they deserve it. Even as soon as the talent was over, they were already grumbling that they thought that they were the bottom and that they did horrible and they were in their head. And yeah, it wasn't good, and it could have been good. That could have won if the right choice was made in the transformation machine. And then Pressure finished us off by performing as Rick Ross and doing some ribbon choreography. I'm sure that Sasha was immediately like, season 9. This was super chill vibes, and maybe I'm nuts, but it felt much shorter than everyone else's. Like, this one was as fast as my last hookup. It was over before it started. And I thought it was odd in comparison to the others in the room how tiny it was. Said that before. After the critiques, Molasses wins the challenge. And again, I think this could have been Big D's week. Molasses came out and they were already laughing. So I knew that Molasses had it in the bag. I've seen this happen before in drag competitions where someone just has the panel in the palm of their hand. Something about their energy is just magnetic. And the judges respond to that so well until they don't. There was one queen in a competition I was in who was in the top for 5 weeks in a row. And we got to week 6 and out of nowhere, the judges just were no longer feeling it. The thing that they loved about her, they started to dislike. And she just didn't get back in the top for several weeks. And I worry that with only 6 weeks, that could happen to Molasses and could affect their chance of winning the whole thing, because maybe around that time that they're going to start getting fatigued, that's when it'll be too late and someone else will swoop in for that win because they're just tired of whatever the thing is that they're gravitating towards now. And our bottom 2 is Perka and Buck, which I think was totally earned and deserved. For the final thrust, they have to prepare a stand-up sketch. And I appreciate that they had some time to do that during critiques so that they were ready when it got time to get back on the stage. Buck was prepared for a 2-minute set, I fear. The story kept going, but didn't have any jokes. And the punchline, the thing that we were supposed to laugh at the most, I kept wondering where the story was going and how it was all gonna connect, and it just never got there. Sadly. It was a gooning session that never finished. And I need to know how Perka is both so confident and unconfident at the same time. Perka's set was so mid-tempo, and it was super messy, but it was impacted with jokes. Every other sentence had a joke. So my question is, for something like this, do I want to see someone who's a good storyteller but never gets to the punchline, or someone who's messy in their delivery but takes every opportunity to try and get a laugh? In improv, I would rather you take a bunch of swings and maybe some of them hit and get knocked out of the park, and maybe some of them miss completely. I would much rather see that than someone get what is that called? A strike? A foul? Sports. I would rather see someone just swing their bat a billion times than not swing at all. And sometimes with improv, you have to just keep lobbing things and see if the audience reacts to it. And if they do, then you keep going with that route. You follow that avenue to the place that gets you the most laughs. You can't just be dead in the water. And so even though I really like Buck and I would have liked to have seen them one more episode because I like the energy more than I like what Perka brings to TV, this show is more about competition than anything, and Perka did win that final thrust in my opinion. And I think my overall thoughts are that this season has been a very fun, rough draft. It's the first season, doesn't seem to be much of a budget, but it's really fun and has great potential, and it has a lot of potential to be great. It just needs some fine tuning. And what it also needs is for Drag Race alum to not post things out of context and make snarky remarks like, y'all wanted this on Drag Race, without having any context of what was actually done. And also, if you, as one of the Drag Race alum, are going to shade this Drag King competition, don't shade it in a category where you were one of the worst verses in all of season 12. Catch that tea. So what did you think about this episode? Obviously, I'm enjoying the competition. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, if you want to see more of my reviews of this season. And if you like Drag Race, I do a lot of coverage of the overall seasons, past seasons, international seasons, and ones as they are now. And hopefully I'll get to do Dragula later on this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all on the flip.